Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Um, there's a pattern repeating itself in your field right now, and the version of you that's been participating in it is about to make the same choice that's devastated you before, just with a different face attached. I'm not talking about small misstep, I'm not talking about learning curve. I'm talking about the kind of self betrayal that you look back on 6 months later and can't believe you didn't see coming when every sign was screaming at you to walk away. The oracle is showing me collision. Two trajectories moving toward each other, your hope and someone else's reality, and the cards suggest these trajectories don't merge, they crash. And you're the one who absorbs the impact while they walk away from the wreckage, questioning why you're so emotional about something they never took seriously. You were pulled to this transmission because some part of you already knows what I'm about to expose. The part that gets drowned out by the louder part that wants so desperately to believe this time is different. The part that keeps getting overruled by the version of you that's addicted to potential over actuality. Feel your feet on the floor right now. Because what I'm channeling isn't what you want to hear. It's not gentle. It's not optimistic. But it might be what saves you from repeating a cycle that's been bleeding you dry while you've been calling it growth. The cards are revealing delusion. Not theirs necessarily, yours. There's something you've been telling yourself about this person, about this connection, about what's possible here that the evidence doesn't support. And the more evidence accumulates against your narrative, the harder you're working to maintain it. I'm receiving imagery of someone building a house on sand. Not because they don't know it's sand, because they've convinced themselves that if they just build carefully enough, if they just want it badly enough, the foundation will somehow solidify. But sand doesn't become concrete through wishful thinking, and connections don't become healthy through your solo commitment to making them work. Your stomach just dropped reading that, didn't it? Let me decode what mistake actually means in the context of what the cards are showing about this specific dynamic. The mistake isn't meeting this person. The mistake isn't feeling what you feel. The mistake is what you're about to do or continue doing with those feelings despite what's being shown to you about who this person actually is versus who you need them to be. The cards suggest you're at a decision point, not the first one. You've had multiple opportunities to choose differently, but each time you've found a reason to give one more chance, to wait a little longer, to believe that the glimpses of what you want are more real than the consistent pattern of what you're actually receiving. And now you're approaching another decision point, maybe the biggest one yet, where the stakes feel higher, where the investment feels too significant to walk away from, where sunk cost is whispering that quitting now means all the previous pain was for nothing. But the cards are screaming that staying is what makes the previous pain meaningless. Because staying means you didn't learn. Staying means you're choosing familiar suffering over unknown possibility. For some of you, this person has been inconsistent from the beginning, available then distant, interested then cold, present then gone, and you've been interpreting the available moments as the truth and the distant moments as aberration. But the cards suggest you have it backwards. The distance is the truth, the availability is the aberration. The exception you keep waiting for is their baseline. And you've been building a fantasy on their worst behavior, thinking it's just a phase they'll grow out of if you're patient enough. For others, this person has been clear about their limitations. They've told you, maybe not directly, maybe through action, that they can't give you what you're looking for, that they're not ready, that they're not interested in the kind of depth you're offering. And you heard them. But then you decided that your feelings could be enough for both of you, that your vision could compensate for their ambivalence, that your love could transform their resistance. But the cards don't show transformation happening, they show exhaustion, yours from carrying a connection that requires you to do all the emotional labor while this person coasts on your effort. Drop a chain emoji in the comments if something just tightened in your chest that you've been explaining away for weeks. Now, let me go deeper into what's actually driving this dynamic and why you keep choosing it despite the cost. There's a wound, old, probably childhood, definitely unhealed, the wound that says love equals suffering. That says if it doesn't hurt, it's not real. That says you have to earn affection through perfect performance, and even then, it might be withdrawn at any moment. And this person, they're activating that wound perfectly. Not because they're trying to hurt you, because they're living their truth, and their truth happens to match the shape of your wound so precisely that your system mistakes the pain for proof of significance. You're not in love with who they are. You're addicted to how they make you feel like you have to fight for scraps of attention, because that's what love looked like when you learned what love was. And anything that doesn't replicate that pattern feels boring, feels flat, feels like it's missing the intensity that your wounded self equates with passion. But intensity isn't passion, intensity is dysregulation. And what you're calling chemistry might just be trauma response masquerading as connection. The cards are showing me that you've been here before. Maybe not with this exact person, but with this exact dynamic. Different face, same pattern. Someone emotionally unavailable who you convinced yourself you could reach if you just loved them hard enough, performed well enough, made yourself indispensable enough. And it didn't work then either. It drained you, it diminished you. It left you questioning your worth, because if you couldn't make them stay, if you couldn't make them choose you, then maybe you weren't enough. But the real truth, the one the cards are exposing, is that them not choosing you had nothing to do with your worthiness and everything to do with their capacity, or their willingness, or their alignment, or their trauma, or their choices. You could have been more, done more, been perfect, and it still wouldn't have changed their behavior, because their behavior was never about you, it was always about them. And this person, same. Whatever they're doing or not doing, whatever they're giving or withholding, it's about them, about their wounds, their fears, their limitations, their choices, not about you. Stop making their inadequacy mean something about your value. Tell me in the comments if your throat just constricted around something you've been avoiding saying out loud. Now, let me reveal what the cards are warning about specifically regarding what happens if you continue down this path. First, escalation of investment without escalation of return. You're going to give more, they're going to give the same or less, and you're going to tell yourself that your increased giving will eventually inspire them to match you. But the cards don't show matching happening. They show you depleting yourself, giving from reserves you don't have, sacrificing boundaries you fought to build. All while this person remains exactly where they've always been, comfortable with the level of investment they're making, unbothered by the imbalance, content to receive what you offer without feeling compelled to reciprocate. Second, isolation. The more you invest here, the less available you become for anything else. The cards suggest you're already starting to pull back from people who actually show up for you, because you're so consumed by someone who barely shows up at all. You're canceling plans to be available in case they reach out. You're declining opportunities because you're too emotionally exhausted from managing this situation to have energy for anything else. You're becoming smaller, quieter, more contained, so you can fit into the tiny space this person makes available for you. And the people who love you, they're watching this happen. They're watching you disappear into a connection that's consuming you. And they don't know how to reach you because you've stopped being reachable to anyone except the one person who barely reaches for you. Third, the inevitable collapse, because this isn't sustainable. You can't indefinitely give more than you receive. You can't permanently override your own needs to accommodate someone else's limitations. Eventually, you break, or they leave, or both. And when the ending comes, because the cards suggest it does come, if you stay this course, it's going to be brutal. Not because all endings are brutal, because endings after prolonged delusion are brutal, because finally seeing clearly after months of willful blindness is brutal, because having to admit to yourself that you knew and you stayed anyway is brutal. The cards are showing me aftermath. You, 6 months from now, looking back at this moment, and the reading you're getting is either I'm grateful I listened to my intuition and walked away before I got in deeper, or I can't believe I ignored every warning sign and made it so much worse. Which version of that aftermath you experience depends entirely on what you choose right now. Your whole body just recognized something, didn't it? Comment what shifted when I said that. Now let me address what I know some of you are thinking. But you don't know this person. You don't know what we have. You don't know the connection. You're right. I don't know them, but I know the pattern, and the pattern is screaming. I know that people who are genuinely invested don't make you question their investment. I know that people who truly want you don't make you work this hard to maintain basic connection. I know that healthy love doesn't require you to silence your intuition to maintain your hope. And I know that every person who's ever ignored warnings about someone who turned out to be exactly what the warning said, they all had the same justifications you're rehearsing right now. But when it's good, it's so good. Yes, that's intermittent reinforcement. That's how addiction works. The occasional reward feels more intense because it's unpredictable, but intensity doesn't equal health. But I've never felt this way about anyone, because you've never had someone activate your wounds this precisely. The depth you're feeling isn't about them, it's about what they're triggering in you that was already there. But they've been through a lot, they just need time, maybe. But you staying while they figure themselves out doesn't help them heal. It just teaches them that their unavailability doesn't cost them anything because you'll be there regardless. But I love them. I believe you. But love without reciprocity, without respect, without basic consistency, that's not relationship. That's self abandonment with a romantic soundtrack. The cards are not telling you what to do. Cards don't command, they illuminate. They show you the trajectory you're on and what that trajectory tends to lead to based on energetic patterns that repeat across countless situations. And this trajectory, it leads to you losing more of yourself, more time, more energy, more belief in your own intuition, more of the boundaries you built through previous pain. Is that worth it? Is the hope of them maybe possibly eventually showing up worth the guaranteed cost of you definitely, certainly showing down? Let me reveal what the cards suggest about the alternate path, the one where you choose differently. If you walk away now, not dramatically, not with ultimatums, just with quiet clarity that this isn't serving you, there's grief, real grief. Because even though the connection isn't healthy, the feelings are real, the hope was real, the potential you saw was real, even if it was never going to actualize. You're allowed to grieve that. You're allowed to miss them. You're allowed to second guess yourself. Grief doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. Grief means you're human and you cared about something that didn't work out. But underneath the grief, there's relief. The cards show it clearly. Relief that you don't have to perform anymore. Relief that you don't have to manage someone else's inconsistency. Relief that you can finally exhale and stop bracing for the next disappointment. And in that relief, in that space created by removing what was draining you, something else becomes possible. Not immediately, not as replacement, but eventually you become available to connections that don't require you to betray yourself, to people who show up without you having to beg, to dynamics where reciprocity is baseline, not aspiration. But you can't become available to that while you're still pouring yourself into this time. You can't receive what's aligned while you're clutching what's misaligned. The mistake isn't that you tried. The mistake would be continuing to try after you've seen enough evidence to know better. So, as we close this transmission, here's what the cards want you to sit with before you make your next move. This person might be wonderful. They might be struggling. They might have potential. They might care about you in whatever way they're capable of caring. But none of that makes them right for you right now. None of that makes this dynamic healthy. None of that obligates you to stay while they figure themselves out at your expense. You're not abandoning anyone by choosing yourself. You're not giving up on love by refusing to accept crumbs. You're not being impatient by having standards that include basic consistency. You're being awake. You're being honest. You're being the adult in the situation when they're showing you they can't be. And the mistake, the one the cards are warning against, isn't that you'll lose them by walking away. The mistake is that you'll lose yourself by staying. Because 6 months from now, when you're looking back at this moment, the regret won't be, I wish I'd given them more chances. The regret will be, I wish I'd honored what I knew and saved myself the additional damage. Your nervous system just said yes to something you've been avoiding, didn't it? Comment what you're recognizing right now that you've been pretending not to see. You were pulled to this reading because you needed permission. Permission to trust what you already know. Permission to walk away from potential that never actualizes. Permission to stop making their limitations mean something about your worth. This is that permission. Not from me, from the part of you that's been trying to protect you but keeps getting overridden by the part that's desperate to make this work. Listen to the protection. Honor the knowing. Choose yourself even when choosing yourself means grieving what you hoped this could be. The mistake is staying. The courage is leaving. And you have more courage than you've been giving yourself credit for. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. You wouldn't be reading this if you weren't already preparing yourself to make the choice your soul knows needs to be made. The cards have shown you the path, both paths. What you do from here, that's your sovereignty. But please, please hear this. You are not required to light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not required to shrink so someone else can remain comfortable in their limitations. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to require more. You are allowed to walk away from anyone who can't meet you at the level you deserve. Even if you love them, even if it hurts, even if everyone else thinks you're giving up too soon. Your intuition knows, and your intuition has been screaming at you to listen before it's too late. It's not too late yet, but it will be if you ignore this, knowing one more time. Gratitude for receiving this with the seriousness required. The warning is here, the clarity is available. What you do with it determines whether you're reading this 6 months from now, grateful you listened, or devastated you didn't. Choose yourself while you still can.